There's a New York Times article that came out over the past couple weeks that followed the Chows, a couple that moved from Washington, D.C. here to Celebration, Florida. And after 2 years, they thought they maybe made a mistake and moved somewhere else within Central Florida. Now, I'm thinking back through my own life. We lived in Celebration here for some time and then moved locally. And so let's go through maybe 4 or 5 different things that you should think through when you're moving to Central Florida, choosing the right area, and some pitfalls you might see along the way. Stay tuned. If you're in downtown Celebration, you should check out Colombia for lunch or dinner. It's one of the best Spanish and Cuban restaurants that we have in all of Central Florida. It's awesome. So in 2016, my wife and I, we relocated to Celebration from Michigan. After 4 or 5 years, we decided to move locally to Winter Garden. Now the Chows in the New York Times article went from DC to Celebration, and then they moved over to Bay Hill. Now this happens a lot, not because there's anything wrong with Celebration, but because their expectations were misaligned on the place that they chose. So let's start there on a good tip on how to choose a location. One of the major factors for us and the reason why we left Celebration for Winter Garden was really just because we wanted something newer. We wanted something a little bit bigger for our growing family. And at the time, Celebration didn't have that to offer. So understanding the real estate types is really important. Now, here in Celebration, you've got townhouses, you've got condos, you've got smaller homes with rear entry, all the way up to estate-sized homes over on the golf course, and really everything in between. And so understanding the real estate type and how you're going to use it is really step number 1. The second thing to think through around where you decide to live might be your homeowners association and how they're going to allow you to use or not use your house. Now, Celebration's HOA is relentless in probably the best ways possible. If you're trying to change a doorknob or a color of your door, you might get a little annoyed, but walking around the town and figuring out how they keep it so seamless and so beautiful, that's because the HOA is a little bit extra. Now, if you want people to completely leave you alone, then obviously we need to look in an area that doesn't have an HOA or maybe a little bit more of a lax HOA. The downtown areas and some of the older communities in Central Florida are going to be pretty much like, hey, as long as you pay your dues so we can keep the lights on, you're good. And it just depends on what type of community you want to really feel. Which really leads me into my next piece is this sense of community. Areas like Celebration have a super active HOA. They've got Friday night food trucks, they've got movie on the lawn, they've got all these different pocket parks and miles of trails that you can use at your disposal. And it's still a really easy way to create community, especially as you're relocating to different areas. Now there's other spots, some gated communities, actually really tough to get to know people because people drive in, they go in their house and you never see them again. The only time you might see them is at the clubhouse. And so thinking through this, building community when you're moving to a new area is actually more important than people think. The next thing I would talk about is drive time. Now, drive time to work, drive time to things that you want to do, that's a very important thing here in Central Florida. As our road networks continue to get better and better, it'll get easier and easier. But for me, I lived in Celebration, but my office was in Dr. Phillips, and the drive in the morning and the evening was always a nightmare. Now, over in Lake Nona, per se, there's probably like a 3 to 5 p.m. sort of thing where bottlenecks over in Narcoossee and really all the road networks. But for the rest of the time, it's really easy to get around. And so going out on date night, checking out different shops, driving at different times of day is going to help you decide where and when you want to spend your time. So let's talk schools, because that drives a lot of where people decide to live. There's a new K-5 here at Celebration back in Island Village, which is the new section of Celebration. Now, when we lived here, we loved the old K-8. It was a great spot, but a lot of people will go online and find their reviews there first. That's an easy, typical sort of thing to do. One thing that you don't know about living in Central Florida, though, that there's a lot of new schools coming up, though. So one important point would be slow down and call the county. Ask them, hey, if I move here, am I under threat of getting rezoned and moved to somewhere else? I know just over in Horizon West, there's like a new school opening almost every year at this point, which is great. They're keeping up with the population demand. But if you get in one area where you love the school and now all of a sudden busing isn't available, or maybe your teachers aren't available, it's just something to think through as you're moving to Central Florida. It's kind of interesting seeing Island Village start to come alive. All of the houses in phase 1 are pretty much done, and they've got these new apartments over retail, which I think is a great thing. But seeing it brand new like this, where it's just got that like new house feel back in this area, reminds me of what it would have been like to be in Celebration in 1998 when they first opened, and this kind of gives you that vibe. But the last tip I would give you when you're moving to different areas is talking to your realtor, talking to the builder, talking to the county if you have to find out what's actually coming to the area. There's so many times where I'll have a house that we're getting ready to sell somebody that's new construction, or even something that's been there for 20 or 30 years, and what you find out is that right behind it is going to be a new commercial building or new retail or a road, which is going to diminish how much your house is actually worth. So yes, every realtor should be able to tell you what's coming, but not all of them do. So a massive question to ask, should you be buying a new house? You know, it's not the end of the world if you need to sell your place and go find somewhere that maybe matches what you're looking for a little bit better. In fact, the great majority of sellers I have in Celebration aren't leaving Celebration, they're moving within Celebration, and that just happens as your lifestyle changes, as your family grows, or maybe kids go off to college. So finding the spot that works best for you on your current lifestyle and your current situation is where we should start. And so my team and I, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice, whether you're thinking Celebration, downtown, or anywhere in Greater Orlando. So reach out at info@pozekgroup.com. We'll see you guys on the next video.